So about 3 years ago, I did a tutorial about how to rig up curtain wall panels using adaptive components in Revit, and I did a workaround where I use a face-based family to make a profile, nest that in an adaptive component in order to create extrusions. And I was always under the assumption that you could not have a double loop in that family, but I've actually been proven wrong. A commenter, Rory, asked me about whether or not we could do that. I said no, but he found a workaround, which I thought was cool and interesting. So I'm going to try and illustrate that now. This is a Revit project, and I've got a mass, and I've done some divided surfaces that I'm going to use as a rigging surface. And if I jump back, I've got a curtain wall panel, which is a 4-point panel with reference lines in between them. And I'll jump back even more to a file I'm calling Hollow Extrusions. So this is a face-based family, and by default Revit gives you a kind of surrogate face that you're going to use to put, whatever you want on it. In this case, I'm really just drawing lines. So I set up a series of reference planes. The default is you're given crosshairs, center, left, right, front, back, and I created the remainder of them. And I just came in and drew lines. So I go to Create, Model Line, use the Rectangle tool, and if you draw it right against your reference planes, you can get those automatic locks, which are pretty convenient. So I did that on this outside set of lines, and then I did it for an inside set of lines to create the loop that I thought I couldn't do. And actually, to get even more adventurous, I drew a circle, which right now you're actually seeing the center mark, which I'll turn off again. Drew a circle here to see if I can even have another hole in the extrusion. Now the trick is to take the set of interior lines, grab them, and create a visibility parameter. So I've created a visibility parameter called Hollow 1, and then for the circle, I've created a visibility parameter called Hollow 2. I haven't tried it yet to see if they can both be on the same one, but you'll see how this behaves, and maybe you can fool around with it. So I'm going to load this guy into the curtain wall panel, and I'm going to place on work plane. I've set the end plane of this reference line, so I'm going to drop this guy right here. And remember, my visibility parameter in this profile that I made with a face-based family, for the inner lines is set off. So if I grab this guy and hit Edit Type, you can see down here, if I turn those guys on, there's my hole and there's my inner loop. And if I just leave those guys on, I grab this and I grab my reference lines and hit Create Form, it's going to give me an error. It's going to say can't do that. So, and I always assumed that was just an irrefutable error that one could not get around. But by using the visibility parameter, if I turn these guys off, I'll grab this guy, I'll Control click, and then I'll Shift click to deselect one of these lines so we can just do a horseshoe and see what the result is. I'll Create Form. Okay, well, predictable, nothing super exciting happens, right? What if I go back into this profile, hit Edit Type, turn on Hollow 1? It's kind of cool. It just automatically makes a void. That is really surprising to me. Hats off to Rory for figuring this one out. And if I grab this guy again and I go Edit Type and I turn on the Hollow 2, which is the hole, lo and behold, it actually creates a hole in the shape, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm going to load this guy into my project, and he's already loaded in here, so he's 1, 2, 3, 4, and this face is plumb, remember, and I'll use the repeater component to array it across the face. Now, this glitch over at the corner is a glitch that just happens with all adaptive component families, and one that I wish the factory would fix, but we don't get endpoints at some of these rhomboidal panels at the corner. And I'll go in and I'll put in a component 1, 2, 3, 4 on the warped face and use the repeater, and it repeats also. So if I grab a single one of these guys and I zoom in underneath it, you can see I've got the little hole that I created and the profile. And there's a slight offset here because the face is warped, so they're not, the extrusions are doubling up on each other, but because they're normal to the surface, each panel is sort of projecting into space slightly differently. In the plumb panel, they map perfectly on one another, so there's no apparent doubling up, even though the doubling up is actually occurring. So that's a pretty cool trick, and once again, I'll just add the caveat that curtain walls are usually enormous. It's a lot of data. You want to be really careful about over modeling it. So use this wisely and be careful, because in a very large project with a lot of panels, you can overwhelm it, and it might be more prudent to do this kind of thing for a very large building with two-dimensional details.